Hola, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. I want to first apologize for not being able to do this month's community call in person. As some of you know, Joe and I are expecting the little one, the little baby, to appear any day now. And so we've sort of bunkered down up here in Colombia, and we didn't want to have a live call and have to cancel it. So we felt the right thing to do this month was to just pre record it. But next month we will be back on it. The topic next month will be about karma. It was a pretty fascinating one. This one's cool too. So today we're going to be talking about how psychedelics impact your energy body. And the first thing I just want to say with this is, unfortunately, this isn't something that I've heard spoken about in pretty much anywhere else, which is kind of alarming given the amount of people who are working with psychedelics and plant medicines and entheogens. I personally work with a lot of people who have had some pretty interesting symptoms after their experience with these plant teachers. And yeah, I've recommended the stuff I'm going to show you guys in here and shown them this, and it's deeply resonated and it's resolved all of the lingering issues in a lot of the cases. Yeah. So this is some really important stuff to consider, especially if you're someone who's working with these different plant teachers and experimenting. This stuff is vital. And just for context, my teacher Steve Montoya, who some of you probably have met or heard about at least because I talk about him a bunch, he is the one who introduced this concept to me. And years ago, after doing a session with him, a training with him, he told me that I needed to go get trained in the modality I'm going to introduce you guys to. It took me about 3 years, but I did. Um, I did do that, and it was well worth it. And when I was there in the training on that third level that took on the third year, I understood exactly why he sent me. The first two were fine, but it was for the third one. So, what we'll discuss, we're going to go over the Hermetic principles, the law of cause and effect, and the law of correspondence, and we're going to use those to justify and validate the fact that psychedelics have an effect on our physical body and the energy body as well. Excuse me. And then we're going to introduce a concept called pranic psychotherapy, which I sort of alluded to earlier. So the first thing I want to name here is that Hermetic alchemy came from the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, the Trisporn. And if you know anything about Hermes, it's a very intelligent, wise individual, uh, a scribe of sorts, you could say. This is the statue of him here on the left. And one thing that was fascinating about this story about Hermes was this idea of the Trisporn. And it was said that he had told and spoke of being incarnated many times before and having memories and awareness of these past lives, almost as if his incarnations were intentional, as in he could literally transport his consciousness into other vessels. Um, and what's really fascinating is that one of the known incarnations of Hermes was Thoth, the Egyptian god. Uh, Different names, but if you've seen this gentleman here with the ibis beak, this is Thoth. He was also a scribe, very wise. What a lot of people don't know is that if you trace this even back further into the land of Sumer, where the first clay tablets were found, the Sumerian clay tablets were found. These are the oldest recorded writings in the history of our species, by the way. You can find them online. There's few books by Zacharias Stitchin that goes into these. So if you go into the Sumerian stories, they speak about these alien beings who came down from another planet in order to harvest gold on this planet and ended up genetically engineering mankind. And what's fascinating is that the head of these beings, which were called the Anunnaki, some other names, but most people know them as Anunnaki, the head of them was a guy named Anu. And Anu had two sons, Enki and Enlil. And Enki was the good son in terms of his favor towards mankind. And Enlil was the more not so favorable son towards mankind. Enki had children, and one of his children was Thoth. who is also known as Ningharzida to the Sumerians. And so it's my belief and the belief of a lot of people who researched in this topic. You can read a book, The Emerald Tablets of Thoth by Billy Carson, or the Zechariah Stitchin novels. There's 7 of them. They're amazing. That Thoth, Ningharzida, Hermes, Quetzalcoatl, I even believe Patanjali of the sutras are all the same person, the same teacher of sorts who's been guiding mankind, moving from life to life, generation to generation, sort of assisting us and helping us in these different ways. And if you were to study the work, I've studied his work immensely, the work of Thoth specifically, there's a common thread between it all. So there's definitely something there. And something also very fascinating is that if you look everywhere he's incarnated, there's some sort of plant technology or plant teacher there as well, almost like he's leaving clues for us. But maybe that's a topic for another time. So first from the Kabbalion, again, which is the teachings of Hermes, there's 7 Hermetic principles in there. If you ever want to read the book, it's fucking phenomenal. Excuse my French. Um, and principle 6 is of those Hermetic principles, the principle of cause and effect. And we all know this one pretty well, pretty intuitively. For every cause, there's an effect. And so I'll just read this. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And as we break this down, the first part is pretty clear. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause, meaning it's not right to left or left to right. It's any way it goes. And everything happens according to this law, they say, this law of cause and effect. Everything is according to that, which is why they say chance is but a name for the law not recognized. And what they're saying is that when we see something as chance, like flipping a coin, what they're really saying is that it's simply an unrecognized law that's unfolding, a law of cause and effect. And that there are many planes of causation. So basically, there are many places and planes that we don't know about that influence us with this cause, which has an effect in our lives, perhaps. So, after this principle, we'll talk about the next one, excuse me, which is the principle of correspondence. And some of you have heard this one before as well. As above, so below. As below, so above. This picture's really beautiful. I really love it. The next principle 2 of this one, we just talked about the law of correspondence. Just as a knowledge of principle of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. And again, we'll just walk through this. If you think about this, it's really beautiful. Actually, geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements, right? Because we know geometry, we can make an inference about the suns and their movements while being here in our rooms or our observatories, as they say. And so what they're saying is in the same way, the principle of correspondence allows us to make assumptions or I get ideas about something from the known to the unknown, right? So if there's planes out there that don't exist, you can use this as above, so below, as below, so above to sort of guide you on what might be occurring. So we'll get an example here. The physical body. When we work out, which is the cause, there is an effect on the physical body, right? This is something we all intuitively understand, and we'll isolate on the biceps here. This is definitely not a rendering of me. I'm much skinnier than that. And so next we see here, if you lift your biceps, for example, you work out, specifically during eccentric contractions, right? When muscles lengthen under tension, you will suffer these little micro tears, which contribute to inflammation, which in turn facilitates muscle repair and growth known as hypertrophy, right? This is how we build our muscles. So we have this cause of picking up a weight, let's say, which has an effect on the muscle. Or we could say that the eccentric contractions have an effect on the muscle. This causes inflammation, which has another effect. right? So we're seeing this law of cause and effect sort of unfold. And so what we could say too is that if as above, so below, then we could make an inference that if lifting weights has an effect on the physical body, then doing something else would impact, like psychedelics, would impact the energy body, right? And so that's what we're really looking at here. Meaning, in the same way that working out has an effect on the physical body, the muscles, using psychedelics has an effect on the energy body, right? We can make an inference from the known to the unknown. And on the left here is an image from the training I was mentioning at the start of this video. In their system, there are, yeah, these 11 major chakra centers. What's really beautiful is this one is created by a man up here, Grandmaster Choco Sui. You see his name up top. Grandmaster Cho was a Filipino biochemist, if I'm correct on that one. And he had a spiritual experience. And because he was a scientist, engineer at heart, he he felt like he had to prove it and validate it and quantify it. And so he spent his life creating literally the most comprehensive energy healing practice you will find. A lot of people have never heard of this. It is phenomenal, especially if you want to work on yourself or your family members. They have online training, which I'll talk about later. It is phenomenal. But one of the things you'll hear is the chakras aren't one color like they teach us in the West. There are a multitude of colors. And so the first two levels of this training are essentially on how to use different colors of prana to work in these various chakra centers, right? And then when you get to pranic psychotherapy, which is what we're going to be talking about today, it's a very specific color. And there's some different teachings and techniques that are used there. But when we ingest psychedelics, it does have an effect on our energy system. Yeah. We feel that, we know that, but we don't really consider it in terms of the repair, which is what we're doing here today. So, again, from the book and the practice, Pranic Psychotherapy, you can find this on Amazon. It's a really, really lovely read. What really happens when we work with psychedelics, according to this specific modality, and I'll show you excerpts from the book. And this is also what Steve Montoya, my teacher, sees, and I've heard other people sort of speak about the same thing in their own ways, that each chakra has a protective web similar to a coffee filter, preventing certain elements from entering your energy body, just as a filter keeps coffee grounds out of your cup. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but if you look at this top image, there's a little black disc behind the chakra. Yeah, that is your protective web. If you scroll to the bottom here, this is a top-down view of the protective web, and you can see this first one represents the holes, tears, and cracks in the web. The next one represents something called negative elementals. The next one represents negative thought entities, and at the bottom are different holes, tears, and cracks. The essential premise, what this modality says, is that when people work with psychedelics, we get tears in our webs due to the amount of energy output. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can punch through a wall, you could drive through a metal fence with enough energy, you can do anything. If you have enough input of energy, it will break something. And so what they're saying in this practice is that this web gets damaged when we work with psychedelics. Plant medicines and entheogens, all those things. And again, the muscles have micro tears, and this is nothing more than a micro tear. As above, so below. So you might be wondering, what are these negative thought elementals and negative thought entities? The negative thought entities is an artificial being that you create. An example here, this is from the book. Negative thought forms or entities are nothing more than repressed traumatic experiences or accumulated negative thoughts and feelings. So let's say you're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts and negative feelings over and over and over again. You ever feel that word? It's like it's getting heavier. That's exactly what's happening. You're creating these sort of artificial beings from your own consciousness. It's a form of energy, it's a vibration. And you create these things with these incessant thoughts. Yeah. The next one, probably the more delicate one to really speak about, is the negative elementals, which are naturally occurring lower level beings. Negative elementals are negative psychic entities that influence a person to behave abnormally. There's a lot of words that people use out there, especially in the medicine space. One thing I tell people all the time is you won't ever hear me using the word like demons or evil spirits, because those are just words that they're using to describe something that they don't fully understand. Right? I've heard once of a person say to somebody else, "I removed 70% of the demon inside of you. The other 30% still remains." And I remembered, even though I know the person was well intended, my heart dropped because I saw the person's face when they heard that news, and immediately this belief formed that there's a demon inside of me. And so, what I do appreciate about this is it's a very soft understanding. It's a negative elemental, a naturally occurring lower level being. And these do not need you to think about them to survive, they exist on their own. And so basically, what's happening is that when you work with psychedelics, plant medicines, you get tears in these webs. And the tears are designed specifically to keep these two forms of entities outside of your energy system. When they get inside, they act like a parasite or a leech. If anyone's ever heard the work of Eckhart Tolle when he refers to something called a pain body, and he says the pain body needs to eat, and so it makes life events or it helps cause life events that reinforce its specific vibration. Let's say your pain body or your negative elemental, your negative thought entities are angry ones, the vibration of anger. What's going to happen when they're inside your web? They're going to reinforce life events that cultivate angry responses to feed themselves. So it's important to know um, this, especially if you're working with Bufo and LSD. Those are the big number one and number two that they talk about that really destroy these webs. And it makes a lot of sense. If you ever saw Bufo, you know how that experience goes. It is a blast off. There is a lot of energy, there's a lot going on. And this is also why when people ask me about trying Bufo, I am very cautious and selective with who I recommend to it. And it's specifically for this reason. A lot of providers, a lot of people, not just in the Bufo space, give way too much medicine. Um, it's just less is more with this stuff. And so if you are working with Bufo specifically, you can work with it. It's going to be fine. Just make sure you're taking the teachings from this chronic psychotherapy process into heart and taking care of yourself after, right? Doesn't mean don't do it. It just means that make sure you take care of yourself. So I like the picture of the frog. It's kind of cute. So yeah, these are the cracks that are produced when you work with these psychedelics, these plant medicines, the entheogens. And also they say too that yeah, the rumination of like lots of negative thoughts. If you remember, we have these negative thought entities or artificial beings you create. If you create a whole lot of those, a whole lot of those, a whole lot of those, it can also damage your web. Yeah. They also say something fascinating in the book. They say that the difference between a clairvoyant person and someone who's in a state of psychosis is that a clairvoyant person has the ability to open and close this web at command, where a clairvoyant person is the web is, or I mean, with this person in psychosis, the web is usually torn open or shredded apart in some way from something. And severe events, especially psychological ones, can have an effect on this web as well. That's documented in the book as well. So, why does this matter? Because parasites require negative energy to survive and force life events to source it. That's what we just talked about. Damaged web results in psychological imbalances, fears, and phobias. If you've ever had that thing where you have this fear, you're like, where is it coming from? My question is, how do you know it's yours? What if you were just experiencing it and it's from someone else's? It's like if someone else is cooking an apple pie, you can still experience the scent of it. It doesn't have to be yours. And the last part is like the flu virus. Once infected, you become a risk to spread to others. And what that just really means, just to be clear on this one, is your demeanor is going to change, your attitude is going to change if you have those going on in your web at all times and it's cracked. And so that's going to cause stress, issues that like vibration in other people. And that's what it means by spread, not necessarily like spread Parasites. So here is a list of um, some different psychedelics and their effect they have on these webs. And again, this isn't saying that any of these are bad, right? All of these on the list can be abused, and all of these on the list can be held in a sacred, safe way. This is just an awareness of the strength of some of these. Uh, and so, obviously, on the severe side, you have the Bufos, the LSD, the synthetic DMT. I've never tried it. I'm going to be honest with you. But if I were to, someone would ask me out of this list on the severe, which is the number one thing I would stay away from, I would stay away from the synthetic DMT out of anything. At least with the Bufo, it's an animal spirit, especially if it's harvested right. I understand the LSD is a gray area. The ayahuasca, you know, as a lot of people know about that, and the pescovite, that one is awesome and it's crazy strong. Joe actually serves Tepescoite in certain cases. We do little ceremonies for people as well. We know a man in Mexico who trained us in it, and yeah, Tepescoite is a really fascinating one. If anyone's ever interested, reach out. But yeah, the synthetic DMT, just yeah, be very careful. Very very careful. Obviously, on the moderate side, we have ketamine, MDMA, psilocybin, peyote, 2CB, iboga. Yep, iboga's up there, as you guys can tell if you've sat with it. Cabo San Pedro, Hape for the mile. A lot of people are surprised when they see the Hape, but Hape is strong. And you have to remember, if you haven't done Hape, it's where they hold, I think it's called a curipe, and they blow it, the tobacco, the snuff into your nose. And one thing you have to remember with the Hape is that the essence of that person is in their breath. Their breath is their life, it's their essence, right? So be very careful with who you allow to serve Hape to you. You know, make sure that the person's living their life right. And then the minimal to none is the cacao and things like mapacho. And so I just want to present this just so you have an idea when you're working with things. Again, none of these are bad, right? Like a knife isn't inherently bad in the hands of a marine biologist who's saving a dolphin from being stuck in like ocean debris. It's an amazing thing. And then you give it to a kid who's playing recklessly and it's destructive, right? So none of these are just inherently bad. They are what they are, and they have an effect is the point to keep in mind. And what can we do? And so, one of the easiest things you can do is this Twin Hearts meditation created by Master Choko Sui. The specific version of the Twin Hearts is for the psychological health and well being. They have a few different versions. One's just the Twin Hearts, one's the Twin Hearts. There's many, but the main three is just the Twin Hearts. Next one's Twin Hearts plus a physical healing, where you move a specific colored prana through various parts of your body. It's really lovely. And then the third one is this specific one where you're working with this. If you look on the cover of this album, whatever you want to call it, you'll see you're working with this brilliant white electric violet light. Yeah, that's the color of psychic prana. And so that's the one you specifically use in that. So if you're going to do this meditation, what I always recommend people is to stare at this for a little while. So you get the image burned into your brain. And then when you go to meditate, it's easier to call upon these specific colors because that's really the training in a whole. It's teaching how to like hold the image of the colors in your mind. And so, yeah, this is available on Spotify and iTunes. You have to buy it, I'm pretty sure, from the iTunes store. I don't think you can stream it, maybe. And then we, just so you know, we also have a Google Drive version if you can't afford it. The money does go to the Pranic Healing Center. So if you can buy it, do it. And if you're struggling financially, let us know. We'll help you out. It's not too much. I think it's like $6. And just for context, it's going to come with one, two, three, four tracks. The first one's an introduction that explains it all. The second one is a warm up. It's sort of like a mini qigong practice. It's really nice, actually. You can just do that warm up in the mornings before you start your day, and you'll be like ready to go. And then you'll do the Twin Hearts, and then you would do the cool down. And just for context, Twin Hearts is essentially what you're doing is you're allowing yourself at first with the Twin Hearts portion to be a vessel for energy to travel through you into the world. And you'll use the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, which begins with, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And you'll feel that peace. Where there's darkness, let me bring light. So the light, where there's sadness, joy, despair, hope, doubt, faith, injury, pardon. O Lord, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, that I might seek to be healed as to heal, and that I not wish to be forgiven as to forgive. For it is giving that we receive, and is dying that we are born to eternal life. And yeah, you'll do that, and you'll allow yourself to become a vessel. And what you're doing in that is you're blending service, prayer, and meditation all in one act. And they say that the two fastest ways to evolve your soul is through prayer, or I mean, through service and through meditation. And so it's a way for you to evolve your soul faster. Yeah. Um, think of it like the ultimate act of service. And then once you're done with the twin hearts portion, then you will start working with the prana. He'll guide you to work to the prana through your specific centers. And what you can do is you can just imagine that you're going down into those webs and clearing them out of all those debris, all those entities. You're sealing up all the cracks, all the holes. And that's what you're doing with it. I mean, that's essentially the training in a nutshell. There's nuances to it, but that's literally what it is. And then, of course, you can work with a trained pranic practitioner. Um, I would put myself, but I don't do the sessions I used to back in the day. It's just they take a long time. And what I do now is if there's ever people who reach out who are in active states of psychosis, I'll work on them from distance using this, and it tends to help a lot, actually. I wish at some point in my life there's a way for me to, actually practice this and validate that in a clinical setting. It'd be fantastic. I mean, could you imagine a mental health hospital where a bunch of chronic healing providers are doing woo magic on people and they're no longer in psychosis? That'd be a beautiful thing. That community is really the community is really undertreated. I mean, pretty much in my clinical program, the way you treat them is you sedate the shit out of them so they don't hurt themselves or anyone, which makes sense. But there's no real long-term treatment plan or effective option for them other than sedation. The family fucking suffers. It's a whole thing. So yeah, some of the treatments just involve like literally electrocuting the brain, like shocking the brain. It's pretty, yeah, it's a pretty underserved community. I would say probably one of the most. One of the things I actually want to work on, but that's a topic for another time. So to close, I just want to say, with what we do at Root and Wisdom, obviously I've been certified in this. And so we actually have this built into our retreat model, right? And so at the end of our retreats, on the last meditation day, which would be after your second ceremony, I bring the group together in the morning around 8:15. Breakfast usually at 9. I explain the twin hearts. I have them all do the twin hearts for this pranic psychotherapy version. And then in the background, I do the specific techniques for specifically repairing those webs. And the twin hearts will repair the webs, and there's a way to specifically go in and do them. And so I do that on everyone uh, as well. And that's just part of our retreat flow. We understand the significance, the importance of this. We try not to leave any corners unturned. I've seen a lot of things in this space that are, yeah, they're just not appropriate. And so we're trying to really hard to make sure that we are taking as much care of everybody as we can. And this isn't Joe doing that. It's just a beautiful picture of her. And the last one, if you have any questions, just please reach out to me. That's the Ruin Wisdom email. You can also message me if you have my number. It's all good. And yeah, just please keep this in mind that if you're going to work with these different plants teachers, yeah, do these meditations. Make it a part of your wellness practice, your self-care, right? Your psychological body is just as important as your mental body, and your mental body is just as important as your physical body, and your physical body is just as important as your energy body. And so by putting that all together, you create an opportunity for yourself to find really great and lasting success in this life. And you'll see if you just did this, even if you weren't working with plant teachers, you would change in amazing ways. Now, when you're working with plant teachers and you do this, you're going to change exponentially, and you're going to take care of your physical body or your energy body at the same time in the same way. So again, if you have any questions about this, just reach out. And well, I appreciate all of you. Bye. Kasi